Broadcasting from the Subaru of Gwinnett Studio inside the Gas South Convention Center in Duluth, Georgia, it's time for Living Life with Leta. Living Life with Leta is presented by Derek Hayes Law. Injured in an accident? Call Derek Hayes Law at 404-777-HURT. And by 5 Strands Affordable Testing. Invest in your health at 5strands.com.
Hello, hello. It is just me today, Leta Hayes, coming to you with Living Life with Leta. And if you are a longtime listener, we have rebranded and spent the last show talking about that, what Living Life with Leta looks like as far as the blog, the focus, the podcast, all of it. I'm so excited about it. It's just given me a whole new lease and a whole new direction. I've done shows before on pivoting in my personal life, pivoting with my career. And that's what this has looked like. I've had to go back to the drawing board and really look at the word status because I had all these status brands. There were so many. Shops at Status. The Status Market was my boutique store. Status Home Design was another one of my retail stores. And the podcast, Status Life with Leta, was born out of that. And through the series of many different events, a lot that we are going to talk about today, because I realized through all these entrepreneurial businesses that I was suffering from burnout in a big, big way. Now, if you are a longtime listener or if you're a new listener, you know that I did a long series on burnout. I actually documented my entire journey because I was going through it. And I've always said that my best shows are what I'm talking about, what I'm living through in the moment. And that was the case for changing my career. Some of it was under my control. Some of it was not. Specifically, having a fire in one of my businesses and losing that business and just all of it. It was just this crazy whirlwind of a couple of years. So we're going to dig into that more today because I have gotten my hands on an absolutely fantastic book. It is called Heal the Hustle, Recover from Burnout, Reclaim Balance, and Revitalize Your Life. My guest today is MJ James, and she is the author of this book. Welcome to Living Life with Leta, MJ.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today and dig into burnout.
Dig into burnout. Now, MJ, let's lay a little bit of groundwork because we know each other. We have crossed paths a couple of times. But at the same time, we are acquaintances, but I want to say I'm friends with everybody. I'm an extrovert, but I don't know a lot about you, right? You and I, we're going to dig in even by the end of the show. I've got more, in prepping for the show that I got some little nuggets that I want to get to, but I don't even know what MJ stands for. Tell me, dig into you a little bit. I want to know your bio. I got to know more. So I'm going to turn the mic to you for just a minute. Tell us, your name. Tell us where you're calling in from. Don't go into the book because I want to get there. But just tell our listeners, who is MJ?
Absolutely. So MJ stands for Melissa Jennifer. That's my first and middle name. And my last name, James, is actually my dad's first name. So that is the pen name that I write under.
That is your pen name. Okay.
That is my pen name because my real last name, nobody can say. It's definitely not memorable. And it does not look good at the bottom of a book. So didn't use that.
But that's how I've known you. That's how we were introduced. This is MJ, right? You've been a speaker in a mastermind that I am a part of when I was talking about the pivoting. And I'm going to throw a little nod here to Amy Whipple, who's the one who brought us together. Amy has been a guest on the show. Amy was the one who really not talked me into, but had a brainstorming conversation with me to drop the word status as a pivot. What does that mean anymore to me? It didn't serve a purpose in where I'm going. So anyway, not taking it from you, but that's our connection, right?
Yes,
was meeting through Amy and through that mastermind. Go back to where are you from? Give me a little bit of background on you.
Yeah, so we are in South Georgia now. I live in the Brunswick, St. Simons area, originally from Pennsylvania. So it's a big move for us a couple years ago. Which was awesome. A beautiful, beautiful move. Do not miss the winter up north at all. So that's amazing. How did I come about? Let's see. I started from my burnout, right? got into ghostwriting, started diving into books, helping people with books. But I really always came back to my life experience, and I kept finding that more people needed some help with that. And so that's kind of how I've evolved into an author, some Christian author, and I create nonfiction books to kind of help women especially live aligned lives that they do not feel burned out from. That's kind of my whole shtick.
And that is a beautiful shtick. Can't even say it right without a list. That is your purpose. I'm going to give it that word. And I have been on this very deep soul's journey to find my purpose for many, many years. I've got a pretty good handle on what my gifts are, but turning those gifts into a purpose took a minute. I've had a lot of different journeys, and again, the podcast has been with me throughout it. That is my constant. I love that you and I have connected. I think all of this happens very organically. I saw that your book was coming out. I grabbed it as fast as I could. I've also tagged it on Instagram right now. I'll retag it so it comes back up in the stories. So anyone listening, again, what you're going to take away from this conversation today, if you're like, I got to have that. I've got to read it. I've got to know what's in there. This applies to me. You can go to Living Life with Leta right now. Of course, it's on Amazon. I'm just making it easier for my followers and my listeners to get their hands on it. So once I clicked, I had this book in my hands within 24 hours. And I dug in really fast. Again, knowing that we were going to do this work today, but also because, wow, I mean, once you get into it, you can't put it down. And that's really a testament to you and to your writing and to your skill level, because there is just so much in here that I grabbed onto immediately.
Dealing with the subject of burnout is hard, right? You don't want your readers to be overwhelmed because there's a lot of resources we could throw in there, right? It's not just, these 5 things, do these 5 things and it's perfect. These 5 things are a start, right? To get people launched into their own journeys. But this was a hard book. This was 2 years in the making, this book. And I kept having to sit with it just to make sure that the stuff I was putting out was really effective for the person who was reading it, who was struggling with burnout. I didn't want to make people feel overwhelmed.
I understand that. And the 2-year journey makes a lot of sense too. Having been in burnout, I can tell you, and I've got, highlighted marks here that I don't even want to jump ahead of, but realizing that I was in it, and this is, again, part of your 5-step plan, the amount of time it takes to come out the other side, they say it takes somebody said it takes just as long to come out of it as it did to get in it, right? This is not overnight. You don't just realize that you're in burnout. I'm saying this with the understanding I can see why this would have taken 2 years. This is not immediate. And for me, I had this extreme fear about once I was in burnout and I stripped everything away, putting things back on my plate to feel that level of anxiety again, to feel that level of pressure and the stress of it. I was so afraid of stress, I almost went into numbing. I can't do anything. I just want to have fun. I just want to be a mom. I just want to, just do all the things I want. I want to do the self-care more. I want to take more trips. That's all wonderful. And I did all that because I was missing all that in the career that put me in burnout. But it was such a slow build. I said it took years for me as well. I can go back to 2 years ago, 2.5 years, 3 years ago, and just now feeling like I have the balance in my life that I want.
It's a really long game. It's not something that you get over quickly. I wrote this book over the last 2 years, but that was after I burnt out and had to recover, right? So this is years and years of information in the making for this. And it is 1,000,000% a very long game. And I don't say that to be daunting, but I say that to remember that moment when I said yes to something, like volunteering to something after, like you were just talking about. I almost had anxiety about it. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm saying yes to something. I'm going to commit to a new thing. What if this burns me out again, right? It does. You're right. It takes a really gentle, I don't know, like you need a gentle blanket wrapped around you, and you have to know that you're going to probably need that blanket for just a little bit. Like you're going to need to sit in that for a bit. And that I think is hard for people who are like, I just want to go. I just want to do. I just want to fix. I just want to,
Right in the introduction of the book, I'm going to dive in right now, and it's page 11, but it's your intro. You say, burnout recovery is different for everyone. This book will lead you to recovery, but you cannot put a time frame on it. And then you go into the bullet points, because is it your home life that's burning you out? Are you overwhelmed there? Everyone's different with the way that their family looks, but maybe you're caring for elderly parents and young children. Maybe you have lots of sets of twins. Maybe, a relative has passed and you have their children. I mean, again, there's family dynamics look different in every single family everywhere.
Absolutely.
And that can burn out. On top of, you add a career or a part-time career or stress or, a job change. Let's say you're a married couple and you're not financially where you want to be. It's like there could be a million different things that put you in burnout. And so, again, you go into this is not individual. It takes time to recover. I highlighted that. I put a star next to that because there's not a cookie cutter way to do this. That's what you said, that gentle nudge. Reading the intro was very interesting. So I want to talk about the specifics of the book. So you dive into burnout, and because I have been in it and can talk about it and say, I recognize that I was suffering from burnout, and I've, again, come out of it, and I've done shows on it, and I've done the work on it. I've studied it. I'm very interested in it. And you don't actually go into your story about burnout until later in the book. You go into more of the teaching, but I was reading it completely internalizing my own burnout, which I thought was really smart, because you're not telling your story's in here. And I even wrote that, like, I got to know what put MJ into burnout. I found out later as I keep reading the book, and I want you to tell our listeners your story because they've heard mine. You start this in a way that makes every reader internalize their own situation. Then you give the guidance, and this is what you're going to learn. I thought that was incredibly brilliant. You don't normally see self-help type books done that way. Normally, it's storytelling to grasp a reader, and then you go into the teaching method. But you did it the polar opposite. Did you do that on purpose, or is that your amazing creative writing style?
I did that on purpose with this because in the beginning, I use a really amazing software where I can literally drag and click chapters around. So in the beginning of this, I started with my story, but I kept saying sometimes, and I've had conversations with, I don't know, hundreds of people that have been in burnout over the last maybe 5-6 years that I've been researching this. Sometimes people really don't know. They can't see it yet. They know that they don't feel well. They know that things are not working, but maybe they can't face the fact that they're doing things that are leading them into burnout. Maybe there's so much going on in their lives that they don't have 5 minutes to sit down to realize that that's why they're exhausted. That's why they're tired. That's why they feel like they're failing at every part of their life, right? So as I started to think through that, I kept coming back to the fact that some of these readers who are going to open this book may not even know or recognize where they are in the journey, but that there's still value for them in learning these steps, because what I have found for myself is the steps that I lay out in this is not just a recovery method. It's a way to sustain yourself thereafter. You can rinse and repeat these 5 R's over and over and over again. You don't have to wait till you're burnt out. You can use them later as a proactive tool to keep your life sustained and kind of in a harmonious way. I don't want to say imbalance, because I don't know that we're always ever all in balance, but as a self-reflection tool, like every week or every 2 weeks, to say, okay, where am I with this? Am I doing good with that? Am I here with that? All right, great. This is rocking. Or, you know what? I need some more rest now, or I need some more of this now. But I really wanted the reader to understand, number one, maybe I am here. Number two, there are tools that will help me do this in a long-term way that will sustain me thereafter. And number three, to know that they were not alone in this struggle, that they were seen through their own struggle, not just mine. I understand their struggle, but that they have their own struggle, and I see that for them. I see that they're struggling with their own set of circumstances.
That's absolutely what I got as a reader, because as you open the first page, all I started thinking about was my story, right? And because I'm on the other side of it, that's where I started thinking, oh my gosh, I remember the tears. I remember the hamster on the wheel reference. I instantly put myself back into that place, but there's still always healing, right? I mean, just because I'm saying I've been through it doesn't mean that every page of this book doesn't have highlights on it. There's so much you're going to get from it. I want to jump into the book and have you, because you mentioned them, I want to talk about the 5 R's. You go right into these in the intro, but then these are the foundation of the book. So what are your 5 R's for burnout?
Absolutely. So my 5 R's are just as I was reviewing what I actually did to recover, and then I started coaching some people through their own recovery, I found that these 5 steps were, again, something that I used to recover and also could use to help me sustain a life away from burnout. And so the first R is rest. The second R is recognize burnout. And that's not just recognize that I am burned out, but recognize the things that we're doing or not doing that lead to burnout. The third step is review your habits. The fourth step is reshape your negatives. And the fifth step is revitalize with action.
In the book, you go in depth with what all of those mean. What I want to touch on right this second is the first one is rest. Most people, I mean, you could probably say flippantly, like, I'm just so burned out. I'm so burned out. But it isn't until you actually take the rest that you have the recognition. You write it. Recognizing burnout is the second step. It's not the first. You don't recognize it first. Talk about that a little bit. And I want you to talk about it because I'm ready to hear a little bit about your journey. I want to guide you to kind of tell us where you were at in your career and what was going on. So you were in burnout. You didn't recognize it yet. You took some rest, and so kind of guide us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at first, like rest to me, and I do go into this in the book, it was like, take a spot. My doctor kept telling me, go do yoga, go meditate. And I was like, lady, I can't sit still for 5 seconds. What are you talking about, right? But I tried very unsuccessfully. And then I took a few spa days, which, it should have been like, now I look at a spa day and I'm like, yes, I'm so there. I'm in it already. I'm excited. But for that point of my life, for that season, a spa day to me meant I was literally taking hours of my time away from all of my responsibilities that I was going to then have to figure out when I was going to get done when I returned from the spa day. It would actually create tremendous amounts of anxiety for me because the entire time the massage therapist is working, my brain was like, I've got to go do this and I've got to go do this. And what's happening here? And is this person taking care of that? And did I do that email? And all the things, right? I just could not shut my brain off. And so I kept saying, this rest is ridiculous. Like I got no time in my life to rest, right? So of course that led to no sleep. That led to panic attacks. That led to a life of super high strung anxiety. And all I could see in that season was I was a victim of what everybody else was laying on me, all the responsibility that everyone else was putting on me, and I was forced to do, which was absolutely the opposite of what was really happening. But I couldn't see that because I was racing in it. So it was only after my doctor literally said to me one day, like, I'm going to see you back here really soon for a heart attack. And I was in my mid-30s. Like I was super young, and I had children and I was on the boards of all these different things. And I had a job that really wasn't very stressful, but I worked it like it was stressful because that's the only response that I knew at that season of my life. And so when my doctor sat there and was like, I'm going to see you for a heart attack, she bumped my medication for the 3rd time. And she was like, what are you going to do? Do you have your will in place? Like, it was really that kind of come to Jesus moment. And I was like, I'm in my mid-30s. Who needs a will? Like, what? And so I went home, and it was really the first time where I had to sit for a minute and hear what she was saying and look at sort of the mess that I had been creating. And it was hard. And then I went from running a million miles a minute to almost depression. Like it was just a crushing depression, a crushing guilt that I had to sit in as I started to reevaluate all the things in my life and my lifestyle and what I was doing to my children. And it was a really heavy, heavy, heavy season for me.
You are vulnerable enough to admit that. I also, in the recognizing part, taking the rest, feeling guilty about the rest, going into recognizing that this burnout really is a thing, right? I say people will say it flippant. And when you're in it with more on your plate, maybe than you can handle, more stress, like your health issues. I had depression setting in. I was on my way we had a joint bachelorette party a couple years ago. You know, Derek and I are blended marriage back in 2022. Again, all podcasted. So I cried the whole way. We went to Biloxi with all of our friends. It should have been a wonderful celebration. I didn't want to go. I tried to call the whole thing off. I cried. He drove, and I cried the whole way there. Contacted, business colleagues, mentors, just trying to get advice, trying to navigate because I was starting to recognize how burnt out I was. I felt it. I definitely would have told you that season, as I was taking things off my plate, it was situational depression. It didn't come with having to let things go, knowing that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, but I couldn't see it yet. I knew it was necessary for my mental health, for my family, for the life that I wanted to live. But it took some depression to walk through to get there. So that's interesting, because even hearing you say that goes, God, I remember that. And that's what the book does. It brings the awareness to say, yep, I did that. And for those that are going through it, you won't have the awareness that I have, having been on the other side of it. You'll have the awareness of, okay, I'm in this. That's going to be the recognizing burnout, one of your R's.
Hello, everyone. As a listener of the Status Life with Leta podcast, you already know I'm attorney Derek Hayes. I've been practicing law in the state of Georgia now for over 26 years. My firm specializes in cases involving personal injury, catastrophic injury, nursing home abuse, and any other situation where someone was injured by the negligence of others. As I've said before, if insurance companies ever resolve claims the way they should, I'd be out of a job. But I'm not worried about that happening. Did you know insurance adjusters are trained to pay you as little as possible to protect their company's bottom line? They say they're genuinely concerned about you, but really the goal is to settle the claim with you for far less money than you deserve. My job is to make sure they pay the full value of your claim and nothing less. You can speak directly with me by calling my office at 404-777-HURT. Visit my website at derekmhayes.com, or check out my social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to catch my podcast, Injury Insider with Derek Hayes, wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast. I look forward to speaking with you.
Tired of experiencing bloating, eczema, diarrhea, or weight problems? Get to the root cause of your dietary discomforts with 5 strands affordable testing. No need to schedule time off work. Just collect and send in 5 strands of your hair to see how intolerant your body is responding to over 600 common food items. Intolerance reactions are not life-threatening like allergies, but are responsible for most daily discomforts. Achieve your dietary and lifestyle goals by visiting 5strands.com and ordering your at-home collection kit today.
So MJ, do you know what 5 strands is?
You know, I am a listener, so I've heard you mention it before. Why? What's going on?
But you've never bought a 5 strands kit for yourself.
No.
Okay, well, let me just tell you really quick. I am a huge fan of 5 strands. Every show, of course, they are one of my sponsors of this show, but I'm super passionate about their products. 5 strands does intolerance testing. And what that means is you send in 5 strands of your hair, and you're going to get back about a 17-page report on all of your food, and they even had alcohol intolerances. Derek and I have gone so far, we've done the vitamin and mineral testing for our bodies. It's incredible. They'll even break down components of food. So let's say they'll have a raw tomato, and you may have 0 food intolerance to it. And if that's stewed or boiled or different, some different ways that they can cook a tomato, a sautéed tomato, you'll get different food intolerances based on the way different foods are cooked. So I could have a level 3 intolerance to something, which just means it's going to affect me if I eat it. I'm probably going to get a headache. I'm probably going to get bloated. It might give me a stomach ache. It's not allergies, but it's intolerances, which is absolutely incredible once you have this knowledge about yourself. It's really amazing. We've done this on all of our children. They do pets. So if your pets have allergies, they do pet testing. It's incredible. Like I said, I'm a big component. I always try to give them a plug, but I want to tell people really what this is. They've come out with all these new tests. I just want to give it a quick shout out. So on their website, they have what their most popular tests are. So pet food and environmental. If your dog licks his paws, if there's a grass allergy, cats too. So interesting. Food and environmental sensitivity test. I've not done that. I've done food. I don't know if I've done environment. Yeah, that's a 2-for-1 now. They have a daily dog multivitamin now, sensitivity and imbalances test. That's the one that I did. And now they have blue-green algae water testing. That's just their best sellers. There are dozens and dozens of different tests that you can do now. So if you're interested, I have a promo code. So it's Leta, Leta 10. That's my promo code. So if you want, go to 5 strands. That's the number 5, not spelled out 5, but 5strands.com and use the promo code Leta10 for 10% off.
That sounds amazing. I'm totally going to grab one of those today.
You should. I've had so many friends. Anyway, yes, lots of great information that you're going to get in that report. We use ours all the time. It's something I'm like, God, I really have a headache. That didn't sit right with me. We'll go pull out our test and we'll say, yep, you probably shouldn't have eaten that. Even my dog, we bought some beef gravy. He got horribly sick. It's the only time we've ever had an accident in the house. Come to find out, he has a level 3 intolerance to beef. He has to be on a solid chicken diet because he has a 0.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. We had no idea. We just bought dog food thinking he would love it. And he got horribly sick. Sure enough, he can't have it. So it guides our life. So, all right, we are jumping back in. Heal the Hustle. MJ James is my guest today, and we are in it right now talking about burnout. MJ, before we went to that commercial break, you were telling us about your journey. We were talking about the rest, the depression. You've now written a book. You're an expert on this. Can you recognize in someone else when they are in burnout?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You become aware of it. Like just randomly, I'll have conversation. We're homeschoolers, right? So I'm meeting other homeschool moms all the time. And even in the pace that they talk or the thing, the word, that word, I should. Listen, if you throw I should once in a conversation, that's cool. When you're throwing 5, 6 shoulds in a conversation, I know that you are operating your life by comparing yourself and what you think you need to be doing to what everyone else is telling you you should be doing. That's not alignment for you. That's alignment for everyone else.
I'm not copying Oprah, even though me doing this, interviewing you, makes me feel a little bit like her. But that would be one of those tweetable moments. That's a yes, I should, and that pace of talking. Yes, you can absolutely tell. So I would say if you're listening to this and you're not feeling burnout, pay attention to your friends. Pay attention to your spouse. Pay attention to your partner. Maybe it's your kids and your grown kids, and they're in that phase of life where they're trying to figure it all out. Look at these cues for them, right? Because by recognizing it and buying them this book, maybe you could, save them a lot of pain and a lot of stress. You said that you write, you speak, you're an expert on this, helping mostly women. And I had written a question down to ask you, even before I knew what you were going to say in your bio, why do guys not identify with this as much, talk about this as much? Why is it that we are primarily gearing this towards women?
The funny thing that I have discovered just through my years of coaching is that even when I am speaking to women, and I speak to women mostly because I am a woman. So I feel like that is an ideal audience and a space for me to have conversation in, just based on the way that I live the rhythm of my life. I have more in common with the way that other moms are living their lives. However, all these years I've been targeting women, I will tell you, I have coached more men than women.
Really?
They don't really care that my website says women or that I'm writing for women.
Uh-huh.
What I have found in my coaching is that men actually like to be nurtured. When they have to let their guard down, they don't want to go to another man because they don't want to appear weak. They don't want to break that fourth wall of, strength that they're putting out in the world. Where women with other women, we're fine with being a little vulnerable. Men with other men, that's not as common. It happens, but it's not as common. And so even though I direct most of my messaging to women because I am a woman and I feel like a lot of women understand my journey of wearing all the mom hats and doing all those types of things, I find that men are very much attracted to my messaging. I've had a bunch of them read the book. I've had a bunch of them reach out. I've done a bunch of coaching sessions with men over the last couple of years that I've been doing this, which is wildly interesting to me.
That is very interesting. In the book, and this had something to do with the cover, you have coined a special phrase, roots down. Tell us what that means.
So I have a friend, my friend Cindy from Pennsylvania. We became friends years ago, and just through different seasons of our life, you know, her kids are just a little bit older. Mine were younger. You know, we were going through different life changes at different times. And we've always said to each other, roots down, take a breath, roots down, because we both suffered really bad with anxiety for a long time. And I still have moments where I do. It's not something that's gone away completely for me. But whenever I think of roots down, I think of those like really big trees that look like they have been here for 1,000 years, right? Their roots are so strong deep down into the ground where there's nourishment, right? There's water down there, and there's minerals and there's nutrients, and their roots are so deeply implanted in that their tree can continue to grow and continue to thrive through just standing rooted and standing quiet and swaying in the breeze and taking in the sunshine. And so that image for me, roots down, reminds me to slow down. It reminds me to literally stand still. It reminds me to take some deep breaths. It reminds me to get outside and get some fresh air and some sunshine. And so I wanted to share that in this book because I think a lot of times we're so busy racing, we forget to look at the natural things around us that actually promote a life of rest. We ignore those. So that's where Roots Down comes from.
I love that. Beautiful, beautiful. And the cover is gorgeous. You've got the big tree on the cover with the big, reminds me of the tree of life with the roots.
Yeah.
So we touched on depression, and I appreciate you acknowledging that. So I've moved forward in the book, and I want to read a little paragraph about guilt, because guilt and burnout, they could be best friends. This is a big part of it, right? This is a lot of where you get into burnout because of guilt. This paragraph, I highlighted it and I wrote next to it, I said, my life, ! So I'm going to read it and then you can kind of tell me where this stemmed from with you. At some point, we wake up and we have to face some crushing realizations. Maybe we chose that board meeting over our children's soccer game, took one last work call, so we missed out on reading that bedtime story. Unconsciously taught our children to exhaust themselves running from one event to the next. Or we were so focused on helping the community that we forgot to pay attention to the last time we had a relaxing afternoon as a family. And yet, because that was my life, and I'll give you two quick examples. Number one, my daughter was cheering, just sideline football, and another mom who didn't know me asked a friend of mine who was in the stands, where's Elisa's mom? How come we never see her? Because I owned retail and I would work on Saturdays. And that was our busiest day of the week. And I was missing my daughter in her proudest moment. And I would say, well, Dad's going, or this other mom's going, or somebody's sending me videos. I mean, that's guilt. Like that punches me in the gut. To think that in the moment I had to work, and again I've done shows and I've done speaking engagements on priorities and habits and values. And we can't dig into all that, but that stems from guilt. And how many times did I send them to bed quickly so I could get to my emails? Probably every night. You know, there's books even when I was packing up their children's books. I'm like, I don't think we read these enough. And that guilt still sits with me. Talk about that, kind of what that means for you with your personal situation. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. And also how to get past it. You know, what the book really says about how to go easy on yourself because of the guilt.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, that season of my life, there were so many things that ran together. So, my first husband left me. I had 3 children. I was like the first one in the family with that stigma of divorce, which just felt so heavy. Like it felt like it was just such a bright light. So I had already felt like I was failing my marriage. Then I had to go start working after being a stay-at-home mom. So then I felt like I was failing my children because I wasn't a stay-at-home mom. That thought process kind of shaped how I started to live my life, because I felt like the more things that people could see me thriving at, the more it meant I was doing well. I wasn't that failure, right? I wasn't the failure of the wife. I wasn't the failure of the mom. Instead, I was the CEO of this and the president of this board and on this board. And I did this thing for the community. And so instead of seeing what I thought was like my Hester Prynne A's stamped all over me with divorce and single mom and, that type of thing, they could see I was doing all this other good because my thought process wasn't really on what am I doing and then the picture that I was creating for my family. It was more on what is the picture that everyone else is going to see, which was a totally wrong thing in itself. But because of that, as I was going through burnout, all I felt was guilty. I felt like, okay, here I am. Now at this point, I think I was married, my second marriage, right? Living in an amazing place. Like life should have been good. But all I saw was, oh, now she's going to start dropping out of this board. Oh, she couldn't handle doing all of these jobs that she took on. Look, she's failing again, everyone. Look, we can add this to the list. We knew she couldn't make it. Those thoughts repeated in my head like a ridiculous mantra every night and would work me up into full-fledged panic attacks literally every night. And the strange thing about that situation was I found comfort in the panic attacks. They were one of the only things that I could feel on a steady rhythm in my life, which is so wildly unhealthy, right? But that's where I was. And I was in this vicious cycle of let me list all the things I failed at today. Let me list all the things I couldn't handle because I wasn't strong enough and I wasn't a good enough wife and a good enough mother and a good enough community member and a good enough sister. And I was listing all of those things, have the panic attack, and then go to sleep and get up the next day and do it all over again without any other changes except sitting in this cycle. And so that guilt kept me in this cycle for a really way longer than it should have. And that's why I wanted to address it very early in the book, because I feel like guilt was something that if I hadn't started to realize was keeping me in a cycle, it would have taken me so much longer to recover. And so I wanted people to understand that it's necessary to feel it, right? Because we shouldn't fight the things that we are emotionally feeling, especially when we're trying to recover from something, right? There's a bit of trauma there. We've done trauma to ourselves. And so we need to recognize that. We need to go through a grief process for it. So feel what you're feeling, but then remember that you're doing this to heal. So you can't stay stuck there. So feel it and heal it.
You say guilt is an ugly enemy. I like that because it is. Ugh, give it that nasty connotation. It demands all your attention by pulling at all your most vulnerable emotions. Yeah. Look at when it comes, give it a nod in passing, and then continue to gear up for the next play using an attitude of gratitude. But then you go down a little bit and you said, many of the stumbles I took in my burnout recovery were because I did not have a roadmap to follow. Now, I highlighted that because this book is the roadmap. That's what you said. That's why I wrote this book. I didn't have a roadmap. And oh my goodness, I absorb information. I'm an avid reader. I love self-help, right? I work on this. I teach on this. I have this platform, but I didn't have a roadmap. Kudos to you for recognizing that it was needed, that there isn't one out there, and yet how many of us can benefit from it. I love it. I love just how raw and open, you will be and put it all out there in the book, and then how many people you're going to be able to help by writing a roadmap. Because, burnout is very, very real. You don't understand it until you're in it. Mm-hmm. And then you got to figure out how to get through it. And I wanted it over. I wanted to say, okay, well, I shut that part of my career down, or I said no to that, or I didn't volunteer to be team mom. Those are just the baby steps. There is a whole longer bit of recovery that took years. It really did.
Absolutely. I mean, burnout stuff, there is stuff out there, but most of the stuff out there is for workplace burnout. And so the messaging for that is really very specific to people who are burned out, like in their office environment. That's not the kind of burnout I had, right? That's not Correct. The kind of burnout most of the people I talk to are having. They feel like they're burnt out by all the aspects of their life. And I kept saying, there's not a solution to this. And there really needs to be at least something to get people on the path. Maybe it's not all of these 5 R's for everyone, but hopefully some of them will help them get a little further than they were 6 months ago, right?
I love that you write, sincerely, MJ James, the former burned out business mom. I thought that is perfect. That is clever. And that's exactly what you're saying. It wasn't just being a mom. You had 3 kids. You were single. You found yourself going back to work. I'm sure you were processing not just the guilt that you talked about, but the pain, right? The relationship was over. I mean, there's a huge emotional component to that. Then now you have financial stress. Now you have, running kids to sports. And business, that word is in there too. Now you're working, right? And so it's everything. It's life all mixed into, this one big pot and trying to figure it all out. And yes, you get burned out, but you got to get through it. That's, there's only one way to go, and it's through it. Are you going to stay burned out? Meaning stressed, anxiety attacks, on the verge of a heart attack. For me, it was looming depression, weight gain, sadness, just not living with the joy and the spark and the zest for life I normally have. No, we changed all of it. So we're the testaments to the joy that comes from recognizing it and now using this roadmap to get through it. So
absolutely.
I love it. So I've got another little snippet I want to read, and then I'll let you talk about it. The goal is to recover and usher in a more intentional life. Yes, and that's what I want to leave, at the end of the show here. That is the goal. We've talked about how ugly burnout can be and all the negative about it and the guilt. And we've said a lot of things to hopefully get the listeners to say, okay, I've been in it or I'm in it now, but what's the goal? The beauty of it. And I think that's what we have to leave them with. Where is our life now? That's the healing part. That's not to say you won't find yourself in stressful situations or even periods of life when things are super heavy. You will. I just said it. Yeah. It's called life. It's not a perfect utopian world. Seasons of busyness will hit and stressful times will come. That's what you wrote. And I'm interjecting to say, absolutely. Right? Yeah. I've got kids in sports. I'm director of marketing for a busy law firm. I'm a blogger. I'm a podcaster. But I can say for me personally, and then I want you to kind of answer that as a testament to where your life is on the other side of burnout. I have very, very slowly put the pieces back together in such an intentional way to carve out my schedule, to set my priorities. I've done value work. I use habit trackers. I use roadmaps every single day so burnout doesn't creep in. I am so intentional about it. That was my word of the year for last year, was intentional, because I go very, very slow. I do take on big things. I'm sitting on a board of directors for a nonprofit right now, and I just took on a huge interior design project for Georgia Wellness, another nonprofit. But that sort of work is one of my values. And so it's project-based, and I'll get in it and go, oh my God, I feel so overwhelmed. But I'm not. I've taken on just enough. When those projects are complete, I'll probably take on something else. But I always thought, and I heard someone say this once on social media, balance is not attainable. It's not possible to reach balance. And that's when I was in burnout. And that sent me into a spiral. Like, I'll never achieve it. Somebody just told me that. Well, that somebody might have been in burnout and probably wasn't achieving it, because my testimony is I have balance. I have a career. I have my own Living Life with Leta going. I'm running a busier than ever law firm. I'm a wife. I'm cooking healthy food for my kids. They're both thriving. It's like I'm doing it. It's not perfect. It is not perfect.
Right.
At all. But it is so much more balanced and relaxed and fun than it used to be. So I want you to say, after your journey, we've talked about what it looked like. I want you to take our listeners to now and leave us with reading this book, following this roadmap. What can it look like for them?
When we use the word balance, it's not like perfectly weighed pieces, right? When I say the word balance, it's like a pizza pie, right? So some of the pieces are a little bit bigger and some of the pieces are a little smaller, but all of it together is yummy and delicious and does not make me feel like I've burnt the pie, right? So when I see that, when I think of balance, that's kind of what I think about my life. And the difference for me, like you were saying, is that I have a filter. Like every Friday afternoon, this is part of my balance. I sit there and I go, okay, how did I do this week? Like, how did my energy feel? Did I feel like I spent enough time with the family? Did I feel like I was productive at work? I run this filter for myself, and I ask myself these questions that are important for me. They're not the same questions that you might ask yourself, but for me, what do I like aligned in my life? And how did I do on that scale this week? And that helps me figure out next week, where am I spending my time and effort and energy? Did I get enough rest? Did I get enough of the right type of rest, right? There's 7 different types of rest. Did I do the right ones to make me feel like I had the energy to sustain all the parts, or do I need a little more? So now it's not 6 months or 8 months later that I figure out that I'm on the wrong path. Now it's 5 days after I've done something. How do I feel? Where am I? Check in. Okay, great. I'll stay on this path, or I mean to, tweak some things up. But overall, there's stressful moments in life, right? I do have children at home that I homeschool. My youngest is 12. I have a mother with dementia. We're her caretakers. So there's a lot of stuff that we manage together as a family on a weekly basis. But I think that word is together. We do it together. It feels aligned. We're a unit. And that's the life I wanted for our family. And we've achieved it. And we sustain it with really intentional action and conversation.
And that all comes out of burnout. Right?
Yep.
And I love that.
Yep.
Heal the Hustle. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it off my social media platforms. MJ, I didn't realize this, but you've got a burnout recovery workbook that is a bonus material to this. So definitely keep that in mind if you want the workbook. I'm sure that's on Amazon as well. I don't have it. I just grabbed the book, and then on page 28 of the book, I went, oh, there's a workbook. I got to go get my hands on that.
It's actually for free on my website.
Oh, MJ. All right. What's your website? I wanted to let everyone know here at the end of the show. How can they find you?
mjjames.com. And if you go under resources, there is a Heal the Hustle workbook right there. You can download it right there.
MJ, thank you for the content. Thank you for being my guest today. Living Life with Leta, the blog. I'm so excited. I've been working on the site like crazy. I wrote a post yesterday. I just have so much traction on something for me that all my listeners know has been stagnant. I needed purpose. I needed drive. I needed to get out of burnout. When you're in burnout, your creativity is pretty well in the toilet. Mm-hmm. I am on the other side of it in a big, bright, beautiful way. So it was so gracious to be able to talk about this today. So thank you. A reminder that Living Life with Leta is sponsored by 5 Strands Affordable Testing, gained personalized insights on how your body interacts with your diet and lifestyle patterns. All they need is 5 strands of your hair, and you'll receive personalized results to help you reach your health and wellness goals. Visit 5strands.com to learn more. Visit Living Life with Leta to learn more. Thank you so much for listening. Till next time.